Welcome, everybody. How are you doing? How are you doing? How are you doing? We are glad to be with you. As usual, a couple of technical issues in terms of the stream. But we are now live streaming with you, and we're going to be talking to you about privacy tokens. And that is the goal. So let me just hit everybody up. See the new link. See the new live stream. We're going to be talking about Monero. We're going to be talking about Night. That's midnight. And we're going to be talking about BTC, ETH, and all the others as well. So please join us on the correct stream, and you will see us all there. Okay, so we've got to handle a lot of BTC smugness that is going on at the moment, and that is very much a particular concern. So Bitcoin dominance for 4 years. Let's actually show you how that's been going and get in touch with what people have been saying in terms of that. Why are the BTC guys getting so full of themselves? Well, alts have had 4 years in a row, we are being told. So let's just deal with that and share screen. Make sure that we are dealing with it. Let's go, and talk about the privacy tokens. So altcoins have now dropped against Bitcoin here from our friend, the maximalist, for 4 years in a row. Factually correct, is 100% correct, by the way. There you go. And with it, we come to different assumptions in him. Bad bear year there, another bad bear year there. A lot smaller range year broadly over here, but later still going down year on year. And then the fourth year that you've experienced over here, again, a bad year. But notice something about this. What has actually happened is you are in a situation where you are now actually facing much tighter ranges, much smaller, and you're getting very close. And it's important to note, let's just expand this chart a little bit. Let's expand the chart a little bit. It's important to note that that alt is not getting anywhere close to the lows of the 2021. Some might say it has. It has retraced. So what are we actually looking at? Let's just remind everybody what we're looking at. We're looking at the total 3 minus USDT divided by BTC on the crypto total cap. So that's all alts excluding Ethereum, minus Tether, which is obviously not part of a tokenomics. It's more about the transmission mechanism from fiat into it. And it's also a defensive play, so it tends to do well. And then divided by Bitcoin. So it's an interesting chart, and actually it's an interesting share. But rather than it being proof of concept, I would say it's more symptomatic that let me rather say, that you're potentially getting to a very low point. Bitcoin is not going to be part of, in our view, your New World Order money in a sense of functionality. It just doesn't have the means to do it. And as a result, what's likely to happen is that it's too slow, first of all, on many other levels. Forget what they tell you about all the multitude of layers that they're laying on top of it to fix whatever it is. It's too slow. And we don't, it's not going to have the speed, the scalability, regardless of what's being overlaid. And as a result of this, alts, the status alts that have got the qualification of the ISO 20022s or whatever they are the ones generally that are going to be in the New World Order money. And also they've been more honest about being that. Bitcoin was always sold to you as a basis of great liberty. It was sold to you as something that would be doing you a great job and ensuring that you are just checking that you guys are all there and found it to the stream. Hit up the likes, please. Sorry for the bit of the bouncy start here. Let's get that over here and just do that and go back to share screen mode and make sure the entire screen is being shared. So when we're looking at that chart that was being shared by Ben, what you're actually seeing is for the last 4 years, Bitcoin dominance has worked. Let's go and work. But does that mean that for the next year ahead that it's going to be a winner? Well, it's at very localized lows, as we were highlighting. This is Monero, which we can come back to in a minute. Let's just get some more real estate, and let's go on to what I'd prefer to call the BTC dominance chart and talk about what's going to be happening for crypto in the year ahead generally. And here's our draw. It's important to make mention that we were actually Bitcoin dominant coming out of this box for an extended period. We pivoted, and we pivoted too early. We pivoted over here, round about here, when we got a major move in the Bitcoin dominance. That's it. So we were saying Bitcoin always moves first. The king gets up from the table in the same way as gold versus silver and platinum and all the others. The king gets up first, but he's not the biggest mover in the end. And what you're actually seeing for silver versus gold right now is very much what I would anticipate plays out for the alts versus Bitcoin, ironically. We were wrong here. We were early. Early is wrong as far as I'm concerned, and we went higher on Bitcoin dominance up to a point here. Now, we've also shown you many other charts, other ways of showing you the same chart, and one of them is the inversions look, and we've actually made some big predictions. It's the first of the new year, so I want to just say none of those predictions have been taken away. None of those predictions have been taken away. And in actual fact, when I look at this BTC dominance over here, I think it looks vulnerable. We've said we've got a rising wedge here. You had a pullback down. You broke out of it to the downside, and you're a little bit captured here in a bit of a range. No great movement yet in the relative strength for 2026. It's only 5 days new, but the possibility that this has indeed turned is our position, and that turn occurred over there. As I've said, we've been faked out once before, and we could be getting faked out one more time. That's what the maximalists will believe in Bitcoin. NSA Epstein token funded by you know who. They all want you in it. The digital gold they claim. You know, all the stories and the narratives you're used to hearing, and we would say be careful with all of that, as you well know. Be careful with all of that. Let's have a look at the inverted nature of this chart, and we're going to do it on a different scale. There we go. And whoops, we don't want that. We want BTC dot dominance. Bring that in. And we're going to have a look on a much bigger time frame. We want the monthly, and it's always been our view. And while the 4 years have been poor, and that's them captured there pretty much from this period. This is a monthly chart, not a year, but that's what's being signified currently by that tweet that was shared over there that I started off the stream with. You can see that at some point alts were incredibly low and Bitcoin was largely 100%. And then we had the 2017, probably your best alt run of the modern era, it has to be said. Last alt run took you up to a localized high and you kind of boxed out over here. And this has been, if you take it in the annual sense, again, BTC dominance, not exactly the same chart that was being shown to you, but let's just go 12 months so that you can see a similarity. That's kind of it. If you take it as a 4-year, this is what you got on the BTC dominance, a down leg, a down leg, a down leg. And I will say to you, the 4th year, now I haven't extracted Tether and I didn't make it total 3. This is just Bitcoin dominance. So it's pretty much similar, but not identical. I would say you've actually just got the biggest hammer of the entire history of Bitcoin dominance against any meaningful market cap. Remember, it was 100% at the very outset. Let's make sure we are still sharing. Good. And that you are seeing that. And as a result, I would say, by the way, that is a very big bottoming call. And it may well be that he chose to share it to you in the manner that he did, because it doesn't look quite as optimistic when you do that. Now, there's a justification for taking out Tether. I don't understand what the justification is taking out Ethereum. This particular poster seems to have a separate space for Ethereum. He talks about all alts and Bitcoin is king only, and everything else is crap, but kind of Ethereum's in a sort of middle land there. He should have used, for me, total 2 in there, but Ethereum didn't have a particularly great year anyway, so I don't think it changes too much. But nonetheless, if you're looking at it at a Bitcoin dominance on an annual basis, that's a hammer, friends, on candlesticks coming. And by the way, you always typically have, in between the bull runs, at least 3 years of bearishness. 1, 2, and 3 in this comparable. And I say always, it's not like it's the largest data set we have. We have the 2017 when there became a meaningful alts world. And before that, well, rather much nothing. So it's quite understandable. And I would argue this was a hanging man, which is known in the candlesticks charting as a potential turn, but the range differential was quite small. And here, this is even smaller too. So you just made the 4 years of red. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the fourth is a hammer. And my overall take here for you is this chart, it already is a green, it's a fledgling green, it was worth to say, on 5 days of data out of 365. But my expectation is that will indeed be a green candle that will move you back up. Now this, remember, is an inverted BTC dominance chart. An inverted BTC dominance chart. So that means the percentage of Bitcoin's dominance goes down the higher you go. So the expectation is you're going to get 46, possibly 45, maybe even 43%. We've spoken of this before, not typically on the annual time frame like this, but that's in response to that particular share on X that we are highlighting here today. That one, 4 years in a row of dropping, and this is our take. That's a hammer. There's a big wick down. You're probably going to reverse. It will serve you better to be in status alts this year. Here's our prediction that we can be held to account for on the 31st of December of this year. So prediction number 1, alts are going to outperform. Have they underperformed for 4 years? They have. It's correct as stated, but alts are going to outperform now going further. And that is going to be prediction number 1 from us. Thank you for the super chats, by the way. I am seeing them show up and I will get to them, but I want to cover the material we intend to cover first. So alts to outperform, and some by some measure. I would imagine, if I'm as a guessing man, I want to take you now back to the monthly and talk more about what structure we expect. I don't expect it to just blast and take out these highs here in one single phase. I don't expect this to happen like this. I expect us to get middling up. So it doesn't mean it's going to be the single best overall relative performance, but I would imagine you'd end up somewhere in that box. In short, we are anticipating a structure for the alt market that will look something like this. Let's go to a different color. That'll look like that as the biggest, and 2017 is the benchmark. You had a larger hang time at the 40% mark here. You made 40, you sold off. 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 You crept back up just over 40 and you sold off, and that was your topping out box. It was a bit of a top out box, so it kind of went a little bit like that across the top there. You had a bit of a box, but then you've been down, 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 down. We did say you would bottom before these lows. So on that, we have been accurate. We said it's never going back at the extremist moments to the lows here. And I think that bottom is in. I think that bottom is in with that. And that's what we expected. In other words, you have two massive impulses, 1 and 2, before potentially setting up something far more bullish. By the way, if you understood the annual hammer that we showed you, this is another hammer. That was another attempt to sell off. that got pushed all the way back up, and you are in very low volatility squeeze right now. Overall, our view on the macro, alts go up on that. Alts go up on that. By the way, MicroStrategy, your favorite Ponzi that has been the buyer of last resort, that was part of the Bitcoin dominance's overperformance, because Treasury is the smartest company in the world, buy something and sit on it. Although the same people that say buying gold and sitting on it is stupid, they seem to be okay with it in terms of Bitcoin Treasury. Anyway, that company stands a chance during this month. You will hear, and I haven't got the exact date, somebody has, and we'll have it in the chat. So let's see the live chat. Somebody post in the chat what you expect the date to be. I think there is an expectation. There's 311 viewers, so and 69 likes. We thank you for that. It's January the 5th, 2026. What's the date that we find out if MicroStrategy falls out of the auto buying of ETFs because it's no longer in the top 500 countries? Let's have a look and let's see. Let us know on that. It would be great to know, and it would be great to see. So we'll follow on that. But my suspicion is you will break to the upside and you will end up somewhere in that range, which means quite a bit of deval. It's 59.42% devaluation potential for up to the 40s. Could go a 40. I don't think you're going as high as a 40. That proved real resistance here, 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 and here. But I think you will get into the 40s from that 59. This is going to mean overweighting the alts has been good. Were we early? Have we said this before? Yes, we were. We said it there. And that turned out too soon. So you can take it with a pinch of salt. We're predicting things about the future. That's how this game works. You're not going to guess perfectly. But on the longer term, you might have a very short, depending on the way of the world, and silver and gold is sure communicating a bunch to us at the moment on the market sniper, and it's been an absolutely brilliant year for us on all trading accounts in the traditional finance space. Sorry for crypto, guys, it's been an absolute dull, boring, pretty poor year, apart from Bitcoin early on. And its 126 run that came on October the 6th, which was kind of a time frame prediction that somebody made on Reddit, and it turned out pretty accurate. And since then, you could also be in a bit of a softening market. Now, normally, if you get a softening market for Bitcoin dominance climbs. So I don't think it's going to be catastrophic. I think what's happening is you're getting more of a squeeze. You're going to have a liquidity, a volatility squeeze. Of course, retail is no longer handling this market. We're barely the rats and mice of this place nowadays. But something like that could occur, and then a bit of an easing, and then very low volatility. It's going to become a yawn fest. That will be the signal that the maximalists that have made very aggressive, outlandish statements, there is no point in anything else, everything else is a shitcoin, etc., that have spoken with that language. I've been there before, you can learn from my experience, all of that kind of talk that has been repeated ad nauseum will be having a very bad time when this moves to the upside. That's when your break comes. I think we're going to funnel, we're going to go boring after a reasonable alt overperformance to Bitcoin during 2026. As I said, round about the second half of 25, we were already in that. We were pitching that, and we were early. So that's when things get really interesting. And overall, our prediction, once that has occurred, that's quite some time in the future now. That could be many years ahead. Bitcoin falls to well below 25% as total dominance. That is our position. We reassert it. Nothing that has changed on the macro has changed. We said, how do we be wrong on that? This has to break down and run the prior lows or highs. Remember, the chart is inverted at around 72%-ish It never got there. It started to turn. There's much more development going on outside of Bitcoin. This is a positive thing. This is a positive thing. So great. That is opening statement with regards to alts are going to be better generally. Right. I want to take you into the privacy space on a little bit of what we've been talking. So what about the noise we've made about Monero? Many are asking, and we've been in this space, and I've spoken to you also about the benefit of having everything done in gold ounces. The dollar is too much part of the story now, friends. The dollar is too much part of the story. That's why this is a tiny bit higher, because you had a lot of debasement in the dollar. Over here, you can see we've sketched it for you before, that this is going to be a mover to the upside and relatively outperforming. And that is actually happening, because the good old Monero used to be at about 25. And I think it dropped as low as the 30s at one point, and it's now in the top 16. So Zcash has flipped it again, but overall it's had a little bit of a counter price action compared to the rest of the market. You can see on the last 7 days, the rest of the alts have caught up with the fact that privacy was getting a lot of love. You can see the 7 days on the two privacy tokens, Zcash and Monero, they're actually down, whilst you've got broadly 7% on Bitcoin, 9% on ETH, Bitcoin at 94. You obviously Tether's flat. XRP, you got 19.52. One of our picks for greatness and a $19. That target still holds. For the guys that say, but you said $19, we didn't say it was guaranteed to happen in this cycle, please. That target still holds and is potential. Solana is 10, Doggy at 22, Cardano had a decent run actually, because we've been quite hard on Cardano, decent run, Chainlink, etc. in double digits. You've got Stellar almost double digits at 9. You've got Sue at 21. You've got AVAX, etc. So Monero has slipped a little bit, and Zcash has slipped a little bit recently. And that's because the privacy call has been the correct call. And when other things were going down, these two were going up. So this is the overall sketch we've provided for you. But I do want to highlight that there is still a possibility you need to push a little bit higher. You need to push a little bit higher. What did Tron do? Tron's done about 3%, also fairly quiet, not particularly dominant, but at least it was positive. So that's Monero. Nothing has changed when we take the eye off. This is a macro call. People get irritated when things don't happen in a hurry for themselves in crypto. They don't. This is hurry up and wait. Hurry up and wait. That's why we're already in a triggered HVF in the silver market, and we're maximizing that. Crypto generally has been a little bit, what's the word? A bad liver. It's kind of been like the guy with, what's the liver disease, for maybe having had a bit too much alcohol on the new year. One of you will remind me of the word down below. But it's looked a little bit sclerotic, I think. But Monero is one of the shining lights. And if you have a look at its dominance, which we can do as well, it's been moving strongly up. The other thing we like to put in on here is just divide it by the gold ounce. So you take the dollar aspect out of it, and you also rebase to a far more solid typical unit of account. And a far more solid typical unit of account is the dollar. And that is the gold ounce. Sorry, I'm tripping over my feet this morning. And this is winding up for a third high, and it will even outperform gold. So there's some people that go, oh, you're just a TradFi guy, you're a boomer. We're not. We're Generation X. We recognize technology is going to be a big part of how they bring this new monetary prison on top of all of us, etc., etc. All of those aspects. But we also say, gold is a better unit of account than the dollar. And certain cryptos will outperform gold at a point, and potentially silver too. which is going to outperform gold. And this is one of them. And we think you're in a nice little structure here, winding up to get you up to that third high, which dovetails very much with what we've just shown you on Bitcoin dominance. So you remember the Bitcoin dominance. We said you're going a little bit higher, but then you might pause and have a little bit of a pullback, and then you're going to absolutely rip. The main event hasn't shown up yet, but you are generally going to trade higher. You're probably going to have a soft spell where you come off a little bit. And this is our plan. That's our sketch for what happens with Monero against an incredibly valuable, real physical asset that holds value, and that's gold. Yes, I'm holding up a silver block here. I'm not keeping gold blocks here for the purpose of reminding of what gold is like, but it's a good unit of account for these times, especially over this longer time frame where the fiat and debasement of debt and fiat is a large part of the story and is escalating. And the only reason you're not noticing it is because there's so much of it going on in other nations too, that the relative valuation of the dollar to the euro and other currencies movements has not been as extreme. Despite that, the dollar lost value non-stop last year. It's 42% down against the ruble, by the way, and 18% down against the Hungarian forint. And all the Western supposedly good nations, which actually are the most toxic nations, it still fell 10% to the euro and approximately similar amounts to the pound, which are lepers to a similar standard. So that's the trajectory generally of Monero. However, inside of this short term, you could even get a revisit down here. Remember, in gold ounces, and gold is doing just dandy right now. So you've got to set your time frame. You've got to set your time frame. But at some point, my expectation in 2026 is you're going to end up at the 180 to 20 range in gold ounces, which will represent a massive overperformance, especially in dollars. So these are not dollars on the scale. Please bear that in mind. It's divided by gold ounces. So you're going to turn around volatility-wise inside of this fractal, and then you're going to squeeze higher and move to a higher point. Privacy is a thing. Now, one of the things that might be lifting ADA a little bit, and my ADA friends are keeping me updated, is NIGHT, the privacy aspect of ADA. Let's go USD. And let's see how much history we got. That's not particularly useful. Let's see, has it got enough? Is its last aspect of movement that we brought up to you was around here. We said, watch this structure. You're going to get a breakout. Well, that made target. And then what did it do? A full pullback. A full pullback. Not all the way to the funnel, but a full pullback. Our funnel is roughly there. And you had a large pullback. The real value of targets illustrated in a single chart. And then we say, well, what's going on here now? What's going on here? It dipped a little hard here, a little deep. I'm a tiny bit concerned that it dipped that deep, but that represents a very low risk entry. And we are now on a new token on a much smaller time frame. So the 4 hour is not the monthly time frame. We talk with far greater confidence on things that have set up over far longer durations. Okay, so everything has a probability needle moving on its scale that bounces left and right, and those things will determine the likelihood of an outcome. So the fact that it had this dicey little spill could spoil this. Maybe it is going to be an HVF, maybe it won't be. It has had quite a deep pullback, but sometimes those are the best entries as well. It needs to hold above that level. It needs to hold above that level. It has started a little bit of a turn, and crypto is getting a little bit of love. So maybe that's just it. I would put stops there. I wouldn't tolerate much more of a loss in that instance. And by the way, you can be in this for a while. It might walk out real slow and not really be making you much money for a while. It could even fractalize and do this so that you have a smaller structure, excluding this big move over there. So there's a couple of things it could do. Don't think we always try to keep all potential scenarios open. And if it's going to break to the downside, it'll run that stop. And that indeed is still a possibility. And the whole privacy, certainly for this token, could be pushed back. And we saw Monero pulling back a little bit. But overall, we expect privacy to outperform generally. And that's already begun and clearly started to happen with most of the big names on the privacy space. And we expect it to continue, just like we continue to expect silver and gold to outperform the dollar. These things are not over in a day. These are real systemic trends. And that's why we're sitting here and talking about them being better. Okay, let's have a little look at what is Bitcoin actually looking like it's doing. So that's the 4 hour. Let's just go back up to a weekly time frame. So it was looking a little bit like a little sick at this level, but it was previously supported here. You can see the 81 was well bought and supported, and you went on to make a marginally higher high after this. The issue you now have, though, is yes, it's rallying for now, but it's far from a violent, super confident, strong rally. Could this be a setup structure on the 81,000 for a head and shoulder? It is possible. It is possible. That doesn't mean it absolute's going to happen, but it is possible. You could be making a weak shoulder here. And you could, if you reverse, you really do not want to be running that low value, because then you engage a target and you put into play a real systemic reversal for a period. And it wouldn't shock me if Bitcoin sold off on MicroStrategy woes and the rest of the alts shrugged it off a little bit, because most of the scared and the retail money is out, and the informed long-term money of institutions doesn't play like retail. So bear that in mind. Let's scenario cast and see some targets for that if the head and shoulder possibility does transpire. So we're on a weekly time frame. The low of that candle was 80.537. I'm going to go with the 81 level. It's quite an aggressive head and shoulder to put in 81. That's so low there, but let's just do it. Let's go. We've got quite a lot of lines on here. Maybe I should do it on another chart. Let's do it on another chart. This one's really busy. It'll take me that long just to tidy it up. Let's go Coinbase. So that would be a potential neckline. Let's go solid line. If we put the longest, stretchiest by HVF method head and shoulder neckline in there, that's the lowest one. That's right at the bottom of the armpit 2. It's kind of aggressive. You would get a target in and around of, we've got to go up to that October the 6th high, around 126. Make sure we're on certain settings, and we're going to clone that. And that could mean if you got a right shoulder and broke this low, it could mean you have triggered a pattern for downside, and that would be around there. Take you to the 45s, 51s type space for Bitcoin. So that's not going to be particularly welcome. Again, you had a broadening structure on the way up, and that turned into support there, there, and there. So that would be a logical point where it would have some form of a bounce. However, if you've triggered a head and shoulder and you're selling off, and now you're having a bit of a bounce, that doesn't mean the move's over. You can make further lows. You can make further lows. And you can see there was roughly some support here as well. You could make further lows. But there's an implied possibility. There's a possibility of that, and that could come as a result of MicroStrategy no longer getting share-based support, falling out of the index, and Who knows? He went to go visit JP Morgan. Maybe for some reason they'll keep him in the index. They want to keep the maxis in their Bitcoin, and they want to keep the institutions in their Bitcoin. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? We will find out. So that's a threat on Bitcoin. How does it fix that threat? The best way it could go forward to go upside would be make a relative high at 113, calm down, go very low volatility, and set up some structure. That could set up upside for it. But that's quite a lot that would have to happen in that. And I'm not quite ready to get that excited. On lower time frames, the move off this bottom is not that spectacular. It looks great here, but you could quite easily be drawing flags at some point. It could get up to here, come back down, and you would end up with that triggering flag on that neckline of 81 at some later point. So watch out. Even though this looks good on the low time frame, it could be playing part and parcel in setting up structures. So Bitcoin, I see it underperforming 2026 compared to select status alts, many of which we've already mentioned on this channel. I see it underperforming probably Tron, probably XRP, probably XLM, probably Monero. I certainly feel it's going to underperform Monero. And I think it's going to underperform most well-established macro cap alts generally for this year. But as we've said before, we can be wrong. You saw the hammer on the Bitcoin dominance. It reversed up. It stayed a red hammer, but it reversed up. So that is the beginning of relative outperformance by alts. You see it in XRP doing 19% while Bitcoin does 9%. Let's have a look at XRP because it's been a bit concerning. We've said not yet, not ready. It keeps wanting to test the $2 mark and falling below. It's broken back above the $2 mark now. It's broken back above the $2 mark. So let's go, that's a daily. Let's get you a weekly time frame. It's been grinding lower. It had all of these shock tests. Typically, if you're a macro bull and you're prepared to wait forever, there's no leverage involved. There's no time value of money to this. You're just happy to buy. Every time it trades below $2 has been a buy. And we've highlighted that before in the orange boxes, generally. So, you know, you bought up that wick, you bought up that wick, you bought up that wick, you could have bought that wick and that spell below the level. But it's also been not that great. It's not been that great a structure. I think crypto and other things have been more interesting during this period for me. Remember how long and how angry everybody got about the wait before this break. We'd said XRP will break, and I fear the same thing will happen. You're talking about from here, we were waiting for a third impulse. We traded that little HVF, some will remember, and then it came all the way back. We thought, that's it, it's going to go. We ended up leaving XRP from July 2023 and not talking much about it until, 18 months later, when it was flushing out lows down here. So for the beginning of the journey to the $19, the triggering event. And people got, oh, when's your XRP going to come? People don't understand. They're running an agenda. It's going to come when they're ready to let it come. Some things are running behind. You saw that the Zio King Trump went and secured resources and heavy oil for American refineries, all in the name of stopping cocaine coming into America when the good old CIA, Mossad, Axis are the biggest cocaine smugglers into America. So we all know that, there's lots of geopolitical fun and games going on that take some time to get sorted. All the best laid plans of mice and men fall behind indeed. And that ended up there. The distance between your third high that came out of that little squeeze, and that's what we're showing you in Monero, by the way. We're saying Monero is here. It's doing a little squeeze to pop up to give you an RH3. I did it in the pink, and I was showing you there. XRP is kind of ahead of that. And then after doing its RH3, which was roughly July of 2023, it didn't break until about September, October of 24. You're talking better or going for 18 months. And people just mad as hell, mad as hell. Where's your big move? Where's your big move? Then it comes and then it rests on the interim level. And it's now been resting. We gave you the localized high at $3.36. I admit to you, I don't have the patience to hold on macro monthly patterns. If I didn't sell at 336 and sat through all of this, we would have had 168. You would have watched massive amounts of your profits. When it's leverage and time money, I take money off the table. I take money off the table, and I don't like sitting down falls. You only had a very small spell here where it traded up, and largely you've gone down, down. The crypto story has been heartbreak hotel. I don't like waking every morning up and being involved in something that just feels like a recession the whole time, or a depression going down. I'm not interested in starting every day where it ended the day before, just getting a little worse. I don't have that kind of patience. I don't have that kind of personality. So that was a very good localized high call, and it was a great exit point. And now you do what you do. Am I sad that I haven't sat through this since 3.36 in 2025 to be cheering about it pumping up to $2.26? $1.50 below, a year of nothing and losses? No, it can run all the way back to 336. I'm still no worse off for not being in it, plus the cost of money. So please understand, these things are going to take the time they take, and we can't predict time frames easily for you. We have a time stop where we say it hasn't happened, we sell now. That's a long stop date where it says something new has come into the system. Out. There's new forces. It's not got the original power that it had. Get out. And that is something that can occur. And we like we like to have a point where we accept we're wrong at a time scale wise as well. So I'm not sure what's going on my device. For some reason, I can't see the chats. So I'm going to just check on the live stream over here to see any questions, and maybe just handle one or two of the super chats that I lost from the other one. Sorry about the link mess up today. And if you've had to pay twice for a super chat, I'm doubly sorry. Keep up the great work. Long-term price targets for XLM. I will do that for you. Thank you for your super chat. What are your long-term price targets for HBAR and XDC? Now, HBAR and XDC are outside of my zone one most loved. They will do well, I suspect. They are part of those ISO 222, I don't know how you even say the number, 20022 tokens. As a super chatter, I will run past the charts on them for you. But typically my conclusion every time I do this, just as a forewarning so you're not disappointed, is that there is better structure. We prefer a macro Monero HVF running from 2017 that has very high probability, although you're going to be required to be patient, see what I've just said on XRP, than a double bottom on HBAR. And HBAR is more sort of double bottoms and, a general typical base level technical analysis patterns, that some of which have some great targets on, but don't have the compression, don't have the interims, don't have the duration that, say, a Monero has, that a Tron has, that some of the others we have spoken about have. So thank you for your kind words, and we will look at HBAR and XDC. We've also got from DKK, thank you, from Denmark to the Danes. I made 2,000 with your method. Then I tried catching falling knives and lost it all again. Leverage giveth and leverage take away. It does indeed, sir. But congratulations on making it. The hard learning is not making some money and then buying yourself a license to gamble. That's the dopamine hunt. One of the stages you will go through, thank you to Fruity Banana, by the way, one of the stages you will go through is you'll do something sensible and method-based, and you'll have the right opportunity, and you'll make some profits, and you'll say, that's fun. I'm now flush with house money effect. That means I get to gamble. So it's kind of, you walked straight into the casino and said, here's 20% of what I brought to play with. Go put it on red. I'm just going to the bathroom. And they came back and they doubled it for you. And now you go, woohoo, now to my favorite high stakes table or one-arm bandit, and I've bought the license to play free with their money. No, you took a risk. That's your capital. Because if you'd lost it, it was your money that you lost. So when you get the gain on the 50-50, it's your money that you made on the putting it on red. So please remember that. And you are always more sloppy after a win than after a series of losses where you're really thinking hard about it. I really need this next one to be a win. You need to be in a perpetual state of scarcity in terms of your capital when you are placing a trade. Have I really thought this through? Avoid the dopamine drugs of laying on another trade directly after a winner. It's almost natural to happen. Capitalize that profit and say, that's my new capital line. If I lose anything, it's my money that I got hurt. It's not house money. Never play with house money effect. This is one of the biggest psychological downfalls. You take risk. You have a counterparty risk with the broker. You should be paid for all of that. It could collapse. Ask us about FTX, by the way. Still waiting to be paid. Still waiting to be paid. You know, it was outside, the peasant classes levels, still waiting to be paid. That money, I've lost access to that money, a 7-digit sum that, were it in silver right now, probably would have gone up 5 or 6 times. Much safer, not even a crypto. You know, any of the cryptos gone quite a bunch more. Solana in the first part of the Altcoin, all of this. So, I mean, you've got a counterparty risk, you've got a bank risk, you've got lots of risks. You deserve to be paid and to make your profits. And that is recognition for the risk that you take. And not until you've turned it into something physical that you hold in your hand is it close to being off risk. This isn't 100% off risk. They can come with a man and a gun through my door here and rob me of it. But they're going to have to know that I have it. They're going to have to know where it is. They're going to have to be prepared to do acts of complete criminality. But yeah, do watch that. So yeah, well done on the experience. You had a learning experience and you could have come away with money and a learning experience. Try and make that the next game and make that your new capital level and let it sit in your account and capitalize it in your mind, Fruity Banana. Capitalize it and say, that's my cash. I took a risk and it's still on risk. It's still on risk. So 472 of you with us. Glad to have you, and 153 likes. We appreciate that from those that cared to hit the like button. So there is a recovery kind of going down on XRP, and it's a bit more buoyant than Bitcoin's recovery. You kind of have something like that. Could you have made it into a falling wedge? Maybe you might have from there. That's why you got a little bit more of the compression. But I do think it runs into, thicker weather over here. Overall, the structure, okay, it's great that it's recovering. It's hanging on to the range of around, generally staying above 2, not staying too long below 2. But that doesn't mean it's about a blast through 3.6, $1.60 beyond yet. So we need some winding up structure. What about what we told you? Divide by gold. Gold's the new unit of account. Remember that, friends. What's your net worth in gold ounces? Gold is your new unit of account. Now, if we divide it by gold, you'll see that it needed to get a little bit of a bid. Let's get that back up to the monthly time frame. We got the wrong gold. Let's get out of, let's get long-term XRP and get that in so we get a bit more history. Equites. Where's the history on this? Come on, man. What's wrong with you guys? Let's go Bitstamp. Okay. Thank you so much. So if you have a look at that, you're back to the funnel, and it could have been expected. So for us over here, if you draw the upside HVF in gold ounces, you're bouncing in the funnel area. And actually, you've been in a pullback from roughly exactly that 3.36 localized high. Why? And guess where I went after the 3.36 high? Trading Swiss franc JPY and gold, and then pivoted from more gold to more silver. So in the meantime, while this guy in gold ounces is forming, and you can see I've drawn this chart before because there's lines already here, is forming a broadening structure to the downside that is a continuation pattern expectation. At some point, you will break the capping descending grind line, that one. Let's redraw that because it's kind of a bit messy. I can even use the lines here. I haven't been here in a bit. Why? Because there's better places to be making more money. Go where you treated best. Go where your profits are growing. So quite a strong underperformance. One bounce on the funnel, another technical bounce, and now you're chopping in and around the localized high. So that relative high 3, you're only at the relative high 3 in gold ounce terms, because after you broke and ran the first interim, again, remember, we warn you, you can have a pullback. You can even have a full return move at the first interim. It's exactly what's happened. HVF method, real HVF method on real times. And you see how long it's been. From when you made the first target interim, you were, what date was it? Let's give you this. This is the learning of patience and how you need to trade, friends. Here. Let's get that let's try get the dates. December the 24th. We're sitting December 26, and in gold ounces, you've just gone down on XRP, non-stop. You've been flat and a little bit down in dollars. You're down. You're hard down. You've done a funnel return move. And now you're getting bid up, which is, again, brings it to the point, maybe now some of the alts are going to start overperforming. You've got your first green candle against gold ounces in ages. You've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 monthly candles of nothingness. And you had a bunch, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 candles of nothingness after making our localized highs. So you had 5 candles of nothingness, 1 pump that got taken all the way back, another 5 candles down. So you had a year of going down. And you wonder why we're streaming less and we're talking less on crypto. We're playing in the better sandbox. That's where we play. It's got better toys for us. We're making more. We're happier. We're making more money. We're coming back here now and we say, okay, a little bit of a swallow. Maybe the summer comes back. Maybe the spring comes at least for that. So have a look at that. Gold ounces valuations are your friends. They are your friends. Note that is higher than the previous high there. So you also had a little bit of technical rejection in gold ounce terms here. So a bit of a pullback. Overall, though, you go here. That remains the prediction. When does our time stop kick in that we would say, okay, the idea has been interfered with or something material has changed? Long way away, friends. 2031. That's a time stop. Okay, the trade failed. Or the run of that in gold ounces. So it's going to get trucking pretty decently, and generally we perform well ahead of our long stop dates. Well ahead of. They rarely become a feature. You know you've already been languishing. So you could pop up, you could have a bounce at the splitter, you could wind up on the splitter, you could have a little bit, and then you could go to the high side, then you could come be rejected for a while, you could fractalize, and then you could really get going. And you could run the second interim, and then you could get quite a big smackdown, and then more mess around, and then pop, you get going. That could still see you only arriving sometimes in 2029, and that's great performance. But it also could rip real faster, and it could go a bit slower. But that is a scenario cost, for example, for $19. Nobody said it's going to go straight line up and give it to you in the very year that we said it triggered. It just doesn't work like this. It's much longer than that. And we're measuring it against a real asset in gold. So that's an example of a potential scenario. That's XRP, XLM. We will do the super chats HBAR. Let's, while we're here, just do XLM because some people are fans. It's a more skittish, less volume version of XRP, and I'd just be a little bit careful with it, guys. Generally, you have to be in it for those key moments. In fact, XLM isn't going up as much as XRP right now, and it never finished making its structure. It is lagging XRP's progress. It's lagging Monero. Monero, well, actually Monero not so much. Monero's kind of here, higher, and making it an upper move for a 3. This is in a much deeper pullback, but this only counts as a third impulse, not a breakout, not a full breakout of the pattern. So you're sitting here, you're looking for a low 3, and it cannot run that low. That's a point of failure for the XLM against gold ounces. Remember, we're keeping this gold ounces. So when you measure against gold ounce, you had the surge of XLM, and you literally should have, once it topped and it stopped going strongly up, you should have got out. That's the thing with big time frame structures. They give you the macro gist of things, but they don't promise you straight lines until all targets are made. So this hasn't even triggered. It only triggers up here, and this is a very wide funnel. It's a very wide funnel. Less attractive than the others we've shown you. It's only just bottoming. However, it could have a very good spell. When it does go, it goes strong. It could pump like that. And it could wind up in its own funnel and give you a smaller structure like that. Then you'll have a great opportunity to pick it up here and get the fast bit. You see, we only want to show up for the main event. We want to show up for the excitement. And on these big structure patterns, you need the excitement. So yeah, checking out, this is why you have the chat open on a separate screen. I have it here on the separate screen and I can see it. So let's just make sure I am showing screen to make sure I'm not cocking this up. Damn. Okay. Sorry, guys. I apologize to you. Let me just cover the XLM again. So that's the drawing I was doing. XLM. Need to keep an eye on the device. There you go. That is it here. And that's what I was describing, a deep, deep dip pullback. So it's still in a structure. It's not as good as XRP. Did I do the XRP? Let's go back to the XRP and recap very quickly there as well. I apologize for that. It's very frustrating. You have to do a screen, but I don't want to have on a laptop stream. You can't have the stream on the same thing. So I have to keep watching the device, and then you get into some form of flow, as I'm typically a flow guy, and you end up not showing the screen. So here we go. If ever you're watching the recording and you see I've missed that, just jump straight to it. So that was the XRP. Let's just show you that draw again. That's the pullback to the funnel that we've warned. And that was the scenario I was suggesting drawing. So, you know, you could go up here, you could bounce at the splitter, I was saying. You could go back up there, fractalize. You could run to the interim level 2 and then run to targets, and you could get to 2030, 2029. It would be quite a good performance against a real benchmark, and you could still only be there in 29 or 30. I think it happens a bit quicker, but the long stop date is, as you can see, late in 31. So that's some way off when you're talking about just coming into 2026. Okay, so I do apologize for having you watch me talk there. It's quite frustrating. I'm going to leave that on rather than jump between it. It seems it's beyond my comprehension. So we had a couple of queries around HBAR. So let's just do HBAR. Before we do that, though, is there an others? Yeah. I wanted to have a look at this Yeah, kind of curious about it. And I like to look at the totals every now and then. Let's have a look at HBAR. The other very useful chart to have a look at is, of course, the dominance charts. That's a very good relative strength indicator. You can see here's also characteristics that I'm a little bit less excited about on HBAR. Let's put the tether on there. Maybe we'll get a bit more history. Is the general conformity to patterns. It doesn't have many HVFs. It has major surges that trigger the double bottom, and then it fizzles and goes down for lengthy periods. So you had a very sketchy double bottom. This is what I was referring to on HBAR. Your trigger comes real late, but it had already run from very deep, and then it dies shortly thereafter and comes down. It's set up inverted head and shoulder, never triggered, and just fizzled down. So its general compliance technically has been poor to the manner in which I chart, certainly. And it just has out of the blue surges that run real hard. You never know when they'll stop. And then it never holds too much of them. It fizzles a long way back. You can see on the daily we had. And I get it's got a lot of fans behind it. Is that a double bottom? Was that a head and shoulder bottom? No. It took out that shoulder there. It means this whole pattern was null and void. We can remove it. And I just drop them. If they don't do and they don't perform like I expect them to perform, they're just no good. It turned out a localized high rather than a neckline. That all these projections are null and void and can be removed. So I don't have a major technical. Yes, you have it on a small time frame. You know, you'll have a double bottom maybe here. And this is maybe why alts are recovering a little bit. But is it reliable? To me, no. Long period of chop and churn, no understanding what it was doing there. It turned out just downside continuation. The market got really shocked. Look at that bid dump. This is in dollars, not gold ounces. Look at that wick on this Binance. Binance is a massive platform. How can you drop so hard? You started that candle at nearly 22 cents and you traded 7 cents. I mean, that's shocking. There's no bid under that. So I don't like it. I don't like that. Is it going to be potentially very strong? Will all of this volume-based issues on exchanges improve? All of those things can improve. But is that a nice to read chart? Have a look at it for yourself. Is it a nice to read chart? We've got a real old time frame. Come to your own conclusions. To me, it isn't. The predominant history I have here since 2019 is very few good patterns. That was a bit of a descending triangle type structure. It's very tough read. It's a very tough read. It's not giving you anything for nothing. And it has long periods of just bleeding out. And then out of the blue surges. It's very much like, when's Elon going to tweet something positive about doggy? And it's just going to go up 4 times. And then the rest of the time, it's just bleeding. I don't want to play that game. I want to see it properly support. So, yeah, I don't like it. XTC also not as good. I know it's regularly asked for. And I suspect it has a future. It's a bit better, actually, than HBAR. At least it had a lengthy trend of gain here. You know, you can see this. A lengthy period of trend gain, and at least it made a low there, and that low was higher. And this current low might be the bottom. I wouldn't want to be the first to call it though. That might be higher, so it might be making something in the future. You know, we saw that falling wedge and it popped. What did it do? It bled out to a new low. So it's still not perfect. It's still not perfect of structure, but better. I do prefer it to what I just saw on HBAR. Broadly. So just respecting on that super chat that we received, we've included HTC and HBAR, yeah, and also XLM. So again, take the best. What about Tron? Let's have a look at Tron. You understand why I just prefer that. It has had a dull spell. Tron has had a dull spell, and it has to be acknowledged, but its overall structure on the bigger time frames points to it in a far more favorable light. Again, I'm going to take it straight to being compared with gold, a much harder taskmaster, and you can see it highlights this underperformance period. But this is already a triggered pattern for us. It's ahead of the game, and they haven't allowed crypto to run. I still expect, despite what we're saying about privacy and various other things, I still expect alts generally to have a broad run. A lot of them might be synchronized at a similar time. I think there'll be things that'll be first and in the middle and later, and the best things are the first ones, etc., etc. And they're usually patterns that have triggered already. But Tron looks at a localized low to me now. And it is the best on a longer time frame, one of the best on a longer time frame. So you can see this dribble back into the primer. It had a primer in its funnel. It actually broke. It made its first interim and has been in a stall since then. This is, you know, XRP 3.36. XRP made 3.6 on the second attempt. There was like a soft secondary run, and Tron part participated in it, but actually its biggest spike was here on the main XRP run. But now it is bouncing on the primers funnel. You see that dashed funnel there? That's the squeeze within the squeeze. This is beautiful. It could start to improve relative to gold in there, and that's going to be a major improvement relative to the dollar. But it shows up that it has been soft since then, which is why we've been more XMR focused. But XMR still needs a qualifying third impulse. Once that's in, you may find an XMR is coming off a little bit. I'll go back into Tron because this will be starting to move, and it will be ready for its next move through the 22,730. It's not 22 cents. It's in gold ounces, and this is in gold that's going to go up in dollar. So you just have to count the percentage move from here to target. This is going to be a huge percentage move. So those that don't mind a risk and holding long, you probably get the biggest outlier move now. Here, 3,621% in making that. And that is, wow, it's 37 times your money. 37.2 times your money. Whatever you put in becomes 37. You put in X, you have 37X. It's a big move. It's a big, big move. And yes, they're all deeply cacocracy in with the Trump and that world. So again, don't be sleeping on this one. Monero, Tron, and then we go XRP. Those are in our order. And I will flip Monero and Tron. Once Monero's made its third high and is easing, and if this one is starting to go, this one broke first, one of the first to break, along with XRP. It triggered there. So those could, privacy gets some respect for a bit and then eases a little bit. Then we get the CBDC friends and the Tether onboarding friends of Tron and the others. That whole bubble, that is the quadrillions of debt and debasing fiat, needs to get into crypto. You've got to think that this is going to do very well. So that's on Tron. Let's have a final run through the comments. Yep. Dollar cost average for 10 Altcoin, someone has asked. It's a curious little fellow that pops up once every blue moon. Altcoin. So let's stay Altcoin. We've been here before. It's a difficult chart to read. I think we got involved once. I'm going to clean all those lines. I think they're random. We've done work before on this. That's on KuCoin. Yeah, nothing too special for me. Nothing that would have it kick its way kick a door down. Yeah, no, it's not the worst, but it's a long way from being interesting as a relative outperformer. Let's do ADA for the guys because they've had a good day, week, a period, along with night. So, well, it's turning, but I still don't like it. I still don't like this 3 impulses getting bigger. But you are at the bottom end of that range now, and you could be coming out of this. But how do you fix it? You need to make a, you need to make an HVF and wind up and go low vol. You need that to break out to the upside. This structure is not a good structure, the broadening structure on a selling down leg. I think ADA will improve inside this range, but this range is quite deep. It's you got 120. You're through 120 on the top side. It's not been a predictable, great chart. I also think against Bitcoin, everything's been underperforming against Bitcoin, but also against gold. I mean, if we hold the gold standard to this, you can see why ADA has fallen to 10. And I just want to highlight, if you were just in the community, let's say you're an ardent crypto guy, you don't want to hear about silver, gold, miners, anything else that's going on in the world. Crypto is the only way you're going to make your money. You've got all your money in crypto. You're going to stay here for as long as possible, whatever. We have repeatedly said that ADA looks like it's going to underperform. And it's gone from 4th, 5th to 10th. And we've repeatedly said Tron's going to overperform. And it's gone from 16th to 9th. So just from an investment perspective, let's say you weren't doing any leveraged shoulder. In fact, it's 8th. Tron is 8th now. It's flipped doggy. I forgot it had flipped doggy. Now, Tron was right where Monero was, and ADA was where Solana was, 5th and 6th. It generally was behind BNB, XRP, and Ethereum. That was ADA. Bang. Now you're sitting at 10. It's shed a lot of relative market cap compared to the ones that currently are 5th. You're talking between 125 billion, 5th place. We can even take 6th place. 77 billion to being in 15 billion. And when Tron was around 16, let's just say roughly 7.9 billion today. I know this is not accurate for when it was number 16, but now you look at it being number 8. It's the difference between going from 8 to 27 versus being 77 and dropping to 15. Can you see no leverage, no anything? If you were in our community and you just said, he doesn't like ADA, he doesn't technically like ADA. And there have been times we have, years ago, it hasn't been for a while, you would have saved the market cap falling, the approximation of what it would mean today, of around 78 falling to 15. Do you know that's a huge loss? That's a huge. You're talking 15 to virtually 80 in the current. Now, who knows what it was then, but the multiples would still have been massive, conservatively 4 or 5 times. You would have lost 75% of your money. Let's just say 4 times, which is well below, because 4 times this is only 60 billion. It's well below. You would have lost 75% versus if you just bought Tron, you would have gone up 3x in a crap market. Who says this has been an amazing alt market? Anyone in the house? Hold up your hand and say, amazing old market. Well, if you're in the right tokens, maybe. But I doubt many generalists watching right here says, this has been an absolute gift of a market for me. Not too many will be saying that. Not even Bitcoin maxis compared to previous markets. You could have gone from 8 to 28. That's 3+ X over the last 2 years that we have consistently suggested. be in Tron, do not be in ADA. That's one of many that we have said. And, you know, we've had guys ask about XDC and HBAR and all of them. Don't be in those. Don't be in those. Be in these. Be in these. Don't be in those. Be in these. And Monero was in the mid-20s and is now 16. How long have we been talking about the Monero? Hold that. That's gone up in market cap. Go have a look at the Monero. So for all of that, being a bit early on the Bitcoin dominance call, yes, we're going to get some stuff right. But mid-20s is, it was actually as low as 28 at one point, but let's say mid-20s, 4, 5 billion compared to 16 billion. You're at about double. You're typically about double or about 80%. That makes a massive difference to your pot size, guys. Be dispassionate. Those will say, oh, technicals don't work on my coin. Technicals don't work in crypto. Well, how many years have we been saying these things? Go look at the legacy videos. No leverage, no setups, no stop losses, no limits. You have 10 grand. You sold your 10 grand in ADA. Today, when it was at 70,000, 70 billion, it would now be 15 billion. It would be 15 out of 70. So you would have lost 7 plus 75%. You'd have 2.5 grand. Versus if you had bought Tron at around 7 billion and it's gone to 28. Your 10 grand has gone up 2.8 times just by investing and holding. Let's say you're doing no stupid stuff. Or maybe you were doing a little bit of trading, but you would have had a capital base that was growing, that paid for your mistakes for taking longs in a difficult market versus just getting crushed. And that's the value of technical analysis with HVF method in the crypto market space. That right there is assertions we've given you inside by relative assessments. And we do dominance analysis, we do totals, we do everything, and we look at the best. We do gold by gold ounce unit as your new base money, because you should be benefiting out of the debasement of the dollar. XRP has been trading down against the dollar that lost 40% to the ruble. If you went up 40%, you would have just kept your rubles in your bank account the same. You wouldn't have made any growth. You can't have it, guys, that your dollar is going down so much. That's against other currencies which are also going down. Remember, they were all in a convexity accelerated debasement. That's why your interest rates are going to go higher. That's why a lot of things are going to happen this year. Check out the Market Sniper channel if you want more details. Yeah. And sadly, so ADA has been slipping. It's getting a little bit of a bid now, but it's not technically beautiful. It's not technically beautiful, guys. Look at that against gold. And that's why I show you that broadening structure. Remember the 3 impulses against the dollar? Look how that pans out for you. That was a continuation broadening against the new unit of account, gold. You broke out to the bottom. Now it's getting bought up here. I need to see much more before I think this is a better investment than gold. Look at it. That's your chart. That's your chart. So sad but true. It's hard facts on here. Hard facts on here. You got Solana, which is quite possibly, maybe it's a worse product. Maybe it's less, it's more backed with money. That's what's going to determine it. It's not the best product that wins, friends. It never is. Let's try get a longer term ADA. We don't need that broker. Let's see. There you go. That's that jaw. That's the crash. From here, it's not been worth holding. It's just bad, bad, bad. Okay. And you know, the charts don't lie. That's the measure of the money. So remember, be careful what you measure things against. And remember to utilize gold ounces. Look at the dominance. It really matters what token you are holding overall. If you had an investment portfolio of XMR Tron and XRP, you would have done better than if you'd had ADA, HBAR, and XDC by a substantial multiple. Let's say all were evenly held by a substantial margin, multiple. Fact be said that the poster of the tweets mentioned, you would have actually been better in Bitcoin for at least 3 years, possibly 4. But the key time for alts is probably now. Now that he's pointing it out, I don't know if he's aware, he's probably pointing to the alt season that everybody is deeply awaiting, that has been keeping people waiting. And he was accurate for keeping them out for as long as he did, but I fear that that accuracy is now going to wane somewhat if that continues to be his view. This is probably going to trade down. Bitcoin dominance is probably going to start trading down now. And I'm concerned for the situation with MicroStrategy. We have puts on that. So we have now invested. So we're no longer impartial, but we feel there's a problem there. Let's have a look at master before we finish. So strategy is MSTR. You shouldn't underestimate the pressure it brings on the stock, on Bitcoin as well, if this stock is removed. So I want to remove these lines, just going to get rid of all the events. Remember, this is a log scale chart. So that's very man peas off the roof. Did we get a date out of you guys? What date? Do we get a date for the big event? Probably not. It's coming soon this January. Somebody will post it in the chat. I'll research that. Let's actually see if we can get what date? MSTR ETF date decision. Q1, no, that's a long time ago. 15th of Jan. 15th of Jan. Yeah, that's it. Okay, great stuff. Glad to be with you. And we look forward to updating you further as things go along. Finally, I would imagine that we're going to have some degree of alt outperformance. Not a blinder, not 2017. You'll probably have a top out in the 40s somewhere on the BTC dot dominance, maybe a bit of a rest, and then we will have the unbelievable breakout. So we're still not deep into the unbelievable breakout part, but you're going to have alts outperform is overall our opinion. And that's outperformance when, as I've just illustrated on CoinMarketCap, could see you do unbelievably well. If you're in something like Tron that had done 3 or 4 times its market cap, as opposed to something like ADA that lost 75%. Okay, so that's what you want to remember. Okay, and that swing in terms of positioning, particularly in an upside market, that just gets doubled. That multiple just gets doubled. That's what we're all about. That's what we do on the Crypto Sniper. We want to help you build wealth. We're never going to get it 100% right, but we're going to always be looking to do our damnedest. We've been doing this for a long time. We've seen many people come and go, many people who do dirty, dodgy things. We're not one of them. We don't send you OTC investments. We don't put you into the small market caps that we're pumping. We don't have fancy agreements with anybody in that space. We play it straight. We want to do wealth in crypto, and we want to help others achieve the same thing. If I'm doing it for myself, it's easy for me to scale that and be as candid and as honest about what I'm doing for myself and pass it on. If that sounds interesting for you, there is real cryptos here. Not yet. Again, some of them are going to move reasonably this year. The alts overperform, but the major move, when I ring that bell, quite possibly could be the following year. You're going to have it dominate gold. You're going to have certain particular, and you think, well, I already know. You've told me. I don't need to join your community. Why book a call and join your community? Because there will be setups across setups in small times. The difference between what silver has done and what I've made, and touch wood and silver and everything else, truly grateful to the markets and HVF method, is vast. It's been huge. And the community, many of the community members of 8, 9, I've got a couple of guys that have written in, thank you so much. I've done 8, 10 times my money. the market didn't do 10 times. It's the judicious use of leverage to maximize on the way up. And that is something that can help you immensely and move you forward. You need to build wealth during these times. You need to protect that wealth. And on top of that, you also need to secure yourself some freedoms. The psychopaths are coming, I'm afraid. The psychopaths are coming, and they're all pushing the solidarity. We need to change our views on how people own property, they tell you. This white man capitalist's privileged notion of having private property rights. We need a more community-based focus to property rights. Boy, oh boy, are they coming for you. Is the Bolshevik communism's coming? It's coming, and it's coming for the West. And even if you have a place far away in the mountains and the hills that's totally off grid, they will change the laws in the country that will give them access to you. The whole goal is ensuring you don't get to escape their grid. They've gamified and played through all these things. You need to think about being nimble, mobile, and potentially being outside of the West. Until next time, I'll catch you later. Thanks, bye.